Mike Karuchak. I'm the Vice President of Docs for Patient Care Foundation, and I'll be moderating the next segment. I'm also the co-host with Dr. Schertz of the Doctor's Lounge, which is the radio show that the foundation puts on Thursdays at 8 a.m. every week. And for the next segment, we're going to do a show right here. We're going to turn the ballroom into the world's largest Doctor's Lounge of sorts. So we're going to be doing a segment of the show, and I'll start that. And so when I say welcome to the Doctor's Lounge, if you could throw a little round of applause out there and make the recording sound good, I'd be grateful. And then we'll introduce Kevin. We'll have Kevin do a presentation, and then we'll do a little Q&A, and that'll be a Doctor's Lounge show that'll air sometime in the next few weeks. So on the count of three, here we go. Welcome to the Doctor's Lounge. Wonderful, terrific. I hope you all are enjoying the meeting. I'm your host for this segment, Dr. Mike Karuchak. I co-host with Dr. Hal Schertz, as all of you know. I hope everything is going well for you today. It's been a wonderful meeting, whether you are just contemplating direct primary care or you're experienced and need to know more about it. We've got something here for you to learn. So in that spirit, I am pleased to introduce our guest for the Doctor's Lounge, Dr. Kevin Wakazi, who hails from Colleyville, Texas. And he is going to do something very special here. And I think as fellow physicians, you can understand and identify with this. We usually, as docs, we tell ourselves and we tell each other that we're perfect all the time. We don't do anything wrong. We have everything figured out 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So Kevin is going to do something here that's I think very admirable, which is to discuss failure. He had a DPC practice that doesn't exist anymore, at least in its former form, and he is going to give us a presentation on, in his words to me, what not to do. And I think that's a pretty big deal. I think that takes a lot of guts. So my hat goes off to you, Kevin. The floor is yours. Tell us what you have.
All right, well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I'm a bit of a walker, too. Can everybody hear me, or am I coming through this? So the presentation is called When Everything is Right, But Still Goes Wrong. And I wanted to say that I had the chance to get up to Mr. Bernie Marcus before he left, and I told him that if Medicare for All ever passes, I'm going to go work at Home Depot. Because, I already know where everything is at Home Depot. So he laughed. But bottom line is I came this close to doing it when my DPC practice failed last year. So I'll show you a commercial, first of all, that I spent a lot of money on. I spent about $4,000 producing this commercial. This is about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and about 40 pounds ago, so bear with me. There's three things missing from healthcare today: affordability, consumer choice, and customer service. I'm Dr. Kevin Wakazi, and here at the Colleyville Medical Clinic, you can get all three. Feeling tired or gaining weight? Well, you can get a thyroid screen for only $25. And for you ladies, you can get an ovarian cancer screening for only $35. Want to get your heart checked out? An EKG here is only 25 bucks. And customer service? Well, if you have a scheduled appointment and I'm not at your side within 15 minutes, your visit is free, guaranteed. Our prices are not only affordable, they're upfront too. And you can find them all at colleyvillemed.com. So the next time you're sick, or if you just want to stay well, come visit us at the Colleyville Medical Clinic. It's about time. So it took about a dozen takes to get that little 1 minute segment, but it was fun. I had a great time. And then the cost of producing this was significant, like I said, but I thought it really got my message across. There are three things missing from healthcare: affordability, consumer choice, and customer service. And DPC solves all of that. Every bit of that is solved by DPC. So I went into this with the idea that, this is the fix for healthcare. This is back in 2013, though, and times they have changed quite a bit since then, as we'll see. But when I went into this, one of the mistakes that I made was I went in de novo. I'm an emergency physician by training. In fact, I trained right here in Orlando. I'm going to go over there and see them later on tonight, and in a non-official capacity, by the way. But the bottom line is, when I trained in emergency medicine, I do a lot of primary care type stuff in the ER, and I figured, well, I'll start my own place. So what I had going to my disadvantage was the fact that as an emergency physician, I was starting out with 0 patients whatsoever. I wasn't starting with a group of patients or a census that I could just transition over into. And many of you do not have that either. If you're working for an employer, you're going to be under a non-compete clause or what have you. You won't have that over either. So you will probably be stuck in my situation where you're trying to drum patients up de novo and get them out of the wild and come in to see you. But one of the things I did have going for me is that in Colleyville, back in 2010 on the census, you can see they had almost 23,000 patients, or 23,000 population. I wish that was the patients. Almost 8,000 households. 40% of those had kids under the age of 18. But pay attention to this last statistic. The average household income was right at $207,000. These are not poor people. So I didn't set it up to be a rich doctor and to take advantage of rich people, but I thought, hey, if I can make it anywhere, I ought to be able to make it there in Colleyville. In fact, in 2018, the American Community Survey ranked Colleyville as the 10th wealthiest city in the US. Colleyville is just a little suburb of Fort Worth, but it's just directly west of DFW Airport. So you've probably flown over it if you've ever been to DFW Airport. But here's the problem. I love seeing patients, as we all do, or else you wouldn't be here. The problem is they hate paying me for it. And why do they hate paying me for it? Why do they hate paying for their health care? It's because of what I call the big myth of health care. And that is the idea that you need health insurance to cover all of your health care. That's just not true. We know it, obviously. We've set up DPC practices. We're pushing the DPC idea, but it's not happening. Patients are not flocking in like we think they should be. How many here agree with that? You're having a hard time getting the message out. And here's the reason. I had to throw some statistics in here so we could get some CME, but the bottom line is that this is the premium for a family, I believe, that's gone up from, what is that, 1999 through 2019. Look at that. It's almost tripled the premiums for health insurance. So it's no wonder that people want to use their health insurance. They're paying so much for it, they want to squeeze every bit of value out of it that they can. But it's not like car insurance. I like to make memes. This meme says it's $600 for a tune-up and a timing belt change. Do you know how much I pay for my car insurance? I shouldn't have to pay you too. Anybody here ever hear that kind of an argument from would-be patients, that they shouldn't have to pay for their health care, they're paying for their health insurance? We just don't experience that otherwise. And yet, in other areas of health, of homeowners or car insurance. But here's the problem. People are spending a lot of money out of pocket because what's changed is deductibles. Deductibles have gone up. And I saw this back in the 2011, 2012 timeframe, and I said, you know what? If people are having to pay for their health care, they want to pay me for their health care. And if I offer them a discounted price or a cheaper price, then I ought to be able to do that. It just didn't work. Am I repeating?
You're doing well.
Okay, sorry. I thought I was repeating. So if you look at the total health care spending here, you can see that the conventional out-of-pocket spend, that little slice of the pie there, the blue, and back in 2007 was $268 billion. That's billion with a billion, okay? That's a lot of money. And of that, look at the physician visits. It was $49.6 billion. Now, interestingly, 5 years later, what's gone up is the out-of-pocket spending by patients has gone from $268 billion to $328 billion. That's just a 5-year change. And look at what's going on with the physicians. Interestingly, that number has stayed rock solid at $49.6 billion. That's how much money patients have spent out of pocket to purchase health care from physicians. The reason that they're spending so much money out of pocket, and I don't even know, I couldn't find statistics that were any closer to now than 2012, but the reason they're spending so much money is because as the premiums have gone up with health insurance, so have the deductibles. So it just absolutely makes sense for patients to be paying us. In fact, health insurance, I like to say, for decades, health insurance was not insurance. It was prepaid health care. When I was born in 1968, my parents, I have the receipt for my birth. Many of you have probably seen it on Twitter. I put it up from time to time. The entire charge was $406.80. Of that, 97%, $396 was paid by my father's health insurance plan. That's not insurance, that's prepaid health care. What we have nowadays is true insurance. In other words, you have this high deductible thing where you have a $10,000 family deductible. Guess what? You're probably not going to use it. If you're just a mere mortal person who's healthy, you're not going to touch that deductible, as you shouldn't, and you shouldn't want to be using your health insurance. So I'll sum it up with this meme here. My health insurance plan has a $12,000 deductible, which means that your $20 copay is stupid. So many, many people, and I'm sure you've ran across several, are still stuck in this mindset. In fact, I was on the way down here this morning, I was in the elevator with a gentleman, and he asked me, what does DPC mean? And I said, it's direct, I call it direct patient care. I love direct primary care, but I like to call it direct patient care as well. I said, we're doctors who don't take health insurance. This guy was baffled. I mean, it took him a second to process it, and I looked at his tag, and he's with some dive network thing, some dive convention that's going on here, and I said, well, what do you do for a living? He said, I own a dive shop. I said, would you take health insurance if you had the option? He looks at me even more baffled. So the mindset is still widely out there that health insurance is needed and necessary for healthcare, and I mean all of healthcare. So convincing patients that it's not is actually the hardest part. The rest of this is easy. But I'm going to still go over some things that I did that I feel like were a mistake and that I hope you don't repeat in crafting a DPC practice. First of all, obviously, location, location, location is key. That's paramount. Where are you going to set your office up? Last night I spoke with a physician. She's a partner, I believe, of Chad Savage. I couldn't remember her name. I hope she's here. But anyway, we were talking. She was employed by a corporate group. There you are. She was employed by a corporate group for years, had a panel of patients, went and saw Chad, talked to him. He thought she was going to come in and grill him, and instead she said, I want to do what you're doing. And so she was able to join his practice, though, because his office was 16 miles away from her office. And what was your restrictive covenant? What was your non-compete? 10-mile radius, so sticking it to the man. I love it. So 16 miles, she was like, able to do that. So good for her. The problem is we're not able to do that. Not all of us are able to do that. These restrictive covenants, these clauses in your contract under employment can limit you. In Texas, I've seen 50-mile radiuses, these restrictive covenants. So the bottom line is, unless you want to go through a court battle, you got to be careful doing that. But as far as that's concerned, once you get past that hurdle, where do you set up your shop? You have to decide which part of the state, which part of the city. Phil Eskew or somebody, one of the advantages of doing this late in the day is I get to pilfer from everybody else. I get to steal from everybody else's talks. But I think it was Phil Eskew that said that move to a border state where it's a better environment for practicing DPC. Well, if you're not in a small state and you can't move to a border state, pick the part of the state that's going to be friendly, where you think there's going to be, lots of activity, lots of economic activity. And then you got to pick which part of town you want to do it in. So those are the major considerations, and most of you have that figured out already, but the minor considerations are significant. Do you want to do a standalone place or a shopping center? Now, I worked for a series of freestanding emergency rooms in the Dallas-Fort Worth area for a few years before I started this, and that's what gave me the idea of doing the DPC thing. But every one of those ERs, these freestanding ERs, they literally sent out a marketing team to scout out locations when they opened up a new one, and they picked a busy street corner, and it was a standalone facility. In fact, they took over a lot of Blockbuster videos. Anybody remember Blockbuster? So Blockbusters were reborn in Dallas-Fort Worth as first choice emergency rooms. And so I picked that too. I did that as well. And I think that's very important. Because you have to consider your foot traffic versus your auto traffic, your drive-by traffic. Now, this is the facility that I ultimately picked. It was a standalone facility on a very busy highway. The estimates are that there's roughly 12,000 cars a day that pass up and down this 6-lane highway in front of my office. I don't think I ever got any drive-by traffic. So here's another hint for you. Be careful what you name your practice. If you're going to call it something like Epiphany Health, that's great. I mean, that's a wonderful name. If you're going to call it something like Heritage Health Associates or something, that may be confusing to patients. I labeled mine as Colleyville Medical Clinic. Now, that sounds pretty obvious, right? I mean, to me, it's a doctor's office. My landlord, the guy who owns this building, asked me about 6 months in, he goes, I drive by here and I don't know what you do. And I was like, what? So you might consider putting your name in flashing lights, Kevin Way, Casey, MD, whatever you want to put up there. So that's another hint. So once you find a space and you've decided on a location, how do you lease it? If you've never gone through this process, it is an education in and of itself. And so some pearls I would offer you is to use a realtor or not. When it comes to commercial real estate in Texas, I use a realtor because in Texas at least, I'm not sure about other states, I didn't have to pay the realtor. The building owner actually had to pay the realty commission. I didn't have to pay anything. So I went ahead and used a realtor to help with negotiations, to help get me through everything. And the considerations obviously are the price per square foot. You also have to look at what's called the triple net, which is the taxes and insurance and utilities. Those are factored in. And then the lease term, I signed a 5-year lease. And then the finish out costs. This building that I just showed you actually was bare. I had to put walls in, I had to put ceilings in, I had to wire it, plumb it, everything. It cost me about $100,000. I had a location right next to a Walmart that I should have gone with that was it wasn't fully finished out, but the landlord in that instance was willing to finish it out for me, give me a turnkey operation. But I thought, no, I'm gonna, I like the standalone location better. First choice is working for them, so I'm gonna do the standalone thing. Big mistake. I wasted $100,000 finishing out someone else's building for them. So those are considerations. Materials and supplies, and I apologize if any of this is redundant for y'all. Vendors, you got to get familiar with vendors. You have to get your equipment, your labs, medications. Labs, I go through Quest Diagnostics, and I got a discounted service pricing. I can get a CBC for $1, maybe $1.50. And then I do the labs for my patients. I pass on the savings to them. So that's something you got to do. The referral network is very important as well. And I write about this in my first book, it's very important that since we're advertising ourselves, since we're putting ourselves out there as able to save people money on their health care, really it doesn't take much of a stretch of work for you to really start saving them dollars on a lot of other healthcare things. For instance, pharmaceuticals. I mean, I can't tell you how many patients I've had who've been on $60, $70 a month blood pressure medicines, and I'm like, gosh, did we ever try any of the $4 blood pressure medicines and see how you do? Some home monitoring, see how it's doing. How often do you take your blood pressure? Oh, well, when I go to the doctor. And I say, well, gosh, what if you took it at home and monitored it? Maybe you don't need to be on blood pressure medicine or what have you. So really getting involved with that. And then I set up some radiology centers, and I was pretty hard-nosed with them. I'll never forget this one guy from an imaging center came in. He was a big strapping guy, and he came in. He's an ex-baseball player, Major League Baseball player. And he's going to strong-arm me. He said, I've looked at your cash pricing that we've had in place now for 2 years, and we need to sit down and discuss that. And I said, we sure do, because there's 3 more imaging centers that have opened up in a 2-mile radius from here, and I want some better pricing. He said, oh, yes, sir. So you have to negotiate, and the patients appreciate that. Somebody mentioned a $1,000 MRI or CT scan earlier today. My patients pay about $270 for a CT with contrast. So if you really work the system, talk with imaging centers, you can get them cash discounts. Pass that on. Specialists, it's not as hard as you think to set up a relationship with specialists. I never formed any kind of a formal network or anything, but I wrote about in my first book very quickly. I had a problem that I wanted to refer to a neurologist, and I called the guy just around the corner from me. And I talked to his receptionist, or talked to the clerk initially, and I called him to see if I could speak to the doc. And I said, do y'all do any cash pricing? She was baffled. She said, what? I don't know how to answer that question. So she got me the office manager, and I asked her, I said, do y'all do any cash pricing? What would be the cash price for a patient of mine? And this patient had insurance, by the way. But what did they also have? A $5,000 deductible. So I wanted to save him some money. So I asked the office manager, she said, we don't accept any cash in this practice. And I said, well, you should, because you're not getting this patient. And then I explained to her, I took the time, I explained to her what I was doing, what I was up to. And a couple of weeks later, I got a nice lunch brought to me by the neurologist himself, who said, yeah, we'll be glad to work this out with you. So it's important that you offer that added value, extra value for your patients. Employees, anybody here ever had to hire or fire employees themselves? It is fun. It's like going through a divorce. It's maybe worse. So considerations when you're, I'm sorry? I thought somebody said something. Considerations when you're hiring employees. You want the obvious. You want somebody who looks nice, who is nice, who presents your practice well. But one of the mistakes I made was you need to compartmentalize their skill sets. You don't hire a medical assistant and then ask him or her to start calling businesses and trying to recruit patients. because they can't do that. That's not their skill set. You have to compartmentalize what they're going to do. I had a fantastic medical assistant, and I even said, hey, look, I'll get you a bonus if you just call. I'll pay you for every patient that comes in. That may be illegal, so nobody turn me in. But I said, I'll pay you a bonus for every patient you can bring in if you can just call. I can't call Dr. Wade Casey. I mean, I can draw blood, like nobody's business, but I can't call. I understand. And then the other things, when you are dealing with employees, you want to document, just like you do in your chart, because I fired over the course of 5 years, I think I fired 4 employees, never lost one battle with the Workforce Commission over their unemployment insurance. So document. The next thing that is extremely important with what I'm talking about here is marketing. And I wanted to go over this because this is something that I was totally uneducated in. I've never had one course in business, and it shows. But with marketing, it is probably, compared to lawyers, the second most scurrilous industry on the planet. Because these people are great at marketing themselves. That doesn't mean they're good at marketing what you have. And keep in mind, right now, even as of 2019, you're still trying to market something that most people don't understand they want or need. Keep that in mind. Like the gentleman on the elevator that I ran into earlier today, baffled when I told him I didn't accept health insurance. So marketing is very important, though. How many times have you driven, if you've lived in a town for a few years, and you drive past a building, and you happen to look at the building and you say, wow, I never noticed that was there. Oh, wow, there's a fish and chip shop there. I never noticed that before. So it's very, very easy for us to just pass by businesses, pass by entities, and not know they even exist. So when it comes to your marketing skills, you've got to do this, okay? And I wanted to play a little clip from Ferris Bueller.
Dave, you got to consider raising your advertising budget.
We don't have the money.
Dave, if you want to sell, you have to spend. It's as simple as that.
See that look on Ferris's face? That was me when I ran out of marketing money, when I ran out of money to do the advertising stuff. But Ferris's dad is exactly right, 100% right. If you want to sell, you have to spend. I can't emphasize this enough. You have to get the word out. And I want to talk about ways to do it. But if you're not prepared to do that, then you're going to be really traveling uphill. So one of the pitfalls, one of the things I would avoid is watch out for who's trying to sell you their services when it comes to marketing your practice. There are different types and styles of marketing services out there, and they're different. They do very different things, and they will often masquerade as doing something when they don't do something else. Marketing services are true marketers who will go door to door, meet with people, talk to people on your behalf, and sell your practice, sell what you're doing to other folks. There are publicists, public relations experts, and they're supposed to, and my take on this was I wanted to get on the news. I wanted to get on local news, I wanted to get on maybe national news if I could, get some spots, and really get the word out there, because that's free publicity. And getting on the news is the best form of advertising, one of the best forms of advertising possible. But in order to do that, I wanted to stick out, so I hired a public relations firm. I paid them $11,000 over a 3-month period. You know what they did for me? They redesigned my website, which didn't need it. I mean, my website was fine. I was happy with it. Okay, so it wasn't SEO optimized and everything, but nobody's looking at my website anyway, so I don't need it SEO optimized. I need you to help me find people to do this. And then there's web design and advertising. And these things can often masquerade as difference. You've got to stick with what you need. I mean, you've got to be diligent about what you're spending and what they're producing for you. And as soon as it's pretty obvious that they're not producing, get rid of them. So I hired this publicist because what a public relations officer is supposed to do to me is...
I need, Don Corleone, those politicians that you carry in your pocket, like so many nickels and dimes.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever seen The Godfather, but in this movie, this mobster's coming to The Godfather because he doesn't need his help in anything except, I need access, I need protection, I need the people you know to help me do what I want to do. And that's what a public relations firm is supposed to do. That's not what I encountered, even though this company is called Miller Public Relations, go figure. So the types of advertising that you can do radio, television, internet. Boy, the most expensive on there is television. I produced this commercial for $4,000, and then guess what? The local non-Alphabet channel affiliate wanted, I think they're a Fox, not a Fox affiliate, they were just a local channel in Dallas-Fort Worth. They wanted almost 10 grand a month to air this thing, you know, a couple of times every other night. And they wanted that in like a 6-month contract. I said, I can't do it. I mean, I just cannot do it. So television is probably, I wouldn't do much television. Radio, I had a radio show in Dallas-Fort Worth area for 3 months, and it was fun. It was great fun. Recommend doing it, but it cost me $500 a week to put it on. It was aired Sunday afternoons. It was 24 minutes. They had 6 minutes worth of commercial breaks. I didn't get any patients. I think I got 1 or 2 patients from that, but it was great fun doing it. But what I found is that instead you can do podcasting. You can do it from your home. You can do it for free. You just got to get a YouTube channel, get a podcast channel. I have one, and I do podcasting now. It's something that you should consider doing through the internet. And then social media, I didn't put that on here, but social media is part of the internet thing too, and that's very important. It's the reason I'm here today. I have a Twitter account, and this is what got me noticed by Lee when he followed my Twitter account, because I'm always putting stuff up there that most everybody in this room agrees with. So the bottom line, why did my clinic fail? Well, I will say this. My practice didn't really fail. What happened was 3.5 years in, for the first 3.5 years of my 5 years in my office, I only did urgent care. I did fee-for-service urgent care. I didn't do DPC, the model that we're talking about here with the monthly or the annual retainer. I just charged people by the time they came in. I said, hey, look, you're coming in, it's $85, $90 for the visit, what have you, and if we have to do anything extra, it's extra. And then I came across DPC. I learned about a physician in Dallas who was doing this, and I said, you know what, I like this idea. This is a great idea, the monthly thing. And I want to share this with y'all. I didn't do the monthly thing, and I think this may be a way to beat this HSA stuff, the pre-tax stuff, is I charge my patients an annual fee. And I tell them this annual fee is for your initial visit, and then I just code up everything. I charge them $350 for an EKG. I charge them $600 for the sit down. I charge them $450 for the labs or whatever. I get up to $1,200, and then when they've paid me that, they can finance it, and they can pay me a finance fee by the month. But I tell them, you owe me that money for the initial visit. The rest of the year, the 364 days, it's my gift to you. But the bottom line is that you owe me that money, and that's not prepaid health care, because in Texas, we had this thing before the law got passed in 2015 that said if you offer prepaid health care, that's health insurance. Well, it's changed now, but I still didn't want anybody coming after me saying I'm offering prepaid health care. So I didn't do it. I didn't structure it like that. I still don't. Because I still have patients. I still have about 30 patients that follow me. I came late to the game, too late, in fact, for me to build up my armamentarium, my financial wherewithal, to stay in my office. So I had to close my office after 5 years. I couldn't renew the lease. So I had to get rid of my employees. So now I do a house calls-based type thing, sort of similar to Margaret Duane, and there's a couple of docs here that are doing pediatric stuff. So I do that, but I only have about 30 patients. I'm not accepting anybody new at this point. So the bottom line, why did my clinic fail? Because number one, I didn't do DPC right off the bat. This is a big hint. If you're gonna do a hybrid model, be careful how you do that. Because if you're not getting the money in that you need, if you're gonna self-finance this like I did, that money runs out very, very quickly. So that's the first reason why my clinic failed. The second reason why my clinic failed is timing. Well, the second reason why it failed, is marketing. I didn't have the marketing budget. I didn't approach the marketing in the right way. But the third reason why it failed is timing. I did this back in 2013, and I'm telling you right now, the mindset today is vastly different from what it was in 2013, just 6 short years ago. People are starting to wake up. They're starting to understand that, my gosh, I'm paying more and I'm getting less. Why am I doing this? And you know who's doing that the most? And who you should really be marketing your efforts to is employers, because they're paying the lion's share of these bills. And let me run an interesting statistic by you. What do 90% of people in the US who don't have health insurance also share in common? Anybody? They work, they're employed, yeah. And many of them, what was it that Elaine said earlier, that 30 million small business owners in the US today, they employ millions of people, tens of millions of people. So these are folks that if I had it all to do over again, when I get back into the game, what I intend to do is to go out and reach out to employers in my local area. In fact, I started doing this, but it was too little too late. and reaching out to the mom and pops, reaching out to the people who have 2, 3, 4, 6, 10, 12 employees as part of their business. I absolutely would reach out to them because these are folks who usually don't have health insurance. They're usually not protected by some broker. And let me tell a quick story on that. Back in 2015, I gave a talk to a local group talking about health insurance and healthcare. And one of these guys came up to me after the talk and he said, "Oh, that was great. You know, that's wonderful. I own a comic book thing over here and I have almost 100 employees. And I want you to help me come and design this thing." And I was like, "I don't know what I'm doing there, but I'll come and talk to you, sure." So I said, "Let me have my assistant call you tomorrow and we'll make a meeting. We'll set it up." So she comes to me the next day and she says, "What did you do to that guy? He just called you every name in the book." And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" She said, "Oh, he's mad as a hornet. He won't talk to you. He doesn't want anything to do with you." And I said, "Oh, I know what happened." Can anybody guess what happened? He talked to his broker, that's right. He talked to his health insurance broker because it's what Carl said earlier. Health insurance brokers, they make money. They're really parasites, I'll just be honest. They make money off this big myth of healthcare, the idea that everybody needs health insurance to have healthcare. So if you're gonna go out and tackle employers, which I highly encourage you to do, I'm not sure I would start out with the 20, 30, 50, 100 or 100 employer groups or employee-sized groups because they're most likely going to be served already by somebody. I would go and make it yourself. If you're personable, if you're friendly, go and which you should be if you're in this business, then go out yourself, drag somebody with you if you want to, but go and meet these local business owners and talk to them directly and let them see you. Let them get a feel for who you are and what you're about. Let them understand that you're here to actually save them money on their overall healthcare costs. One story I told, I like to tell, and it's a true story. I had a testimonial on my website before we had to take it down. 54-year-old guy called me New Year's Eve of 2017 with diverticulitis. And I was able to fix him with Cipro and Flagyl. And please don't anybody tell me that that's not recommended anymore. I haven't done the research. But anyway, so I called him in Cipro and Flagyl. I said, "Hey, look, I'm going to come check on you tomorrow." And I went out to his house on New Year's Day, and he was doing better. And then by the 3rd of January, he was doing fine. And not only did I save this man, who is self-employed and is a multi-millionaire contractor who remodels million-dollar homes in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, but he has a $5,000 deductible. I saved him at least $5,000, and I got him to do his colonoscopy too. So that he hadn't gotten yet. So there's 3 things missing, as I started out saying, there's 3 things missing from most of healthcare, and that is affordability, customer service, and consumer choice. DPC fixes all of that, I promise. And we just have to get the message out there to the people. And I wanted to add a little postscript. I'm a very big fan of Shakespeare myself, and I wanted to add a postscript onto Dr. McKnight's, what she was talking about now is the winter of our discontent. And let me say that, quoting from Shakespeare's Richard III, "Now is the winter of our discontent made glorious summer by DPC." Thank you. And, oh, one more meme. I think we can all relate to this. "But Mr. Rourke, I have been your doctor for over 10 years. I know, Dr. Welby. It's just with my new HMO, I have a $5 copay to see any doctor on their list. And you charge me $15 a visit." This is the mindset we're up against, guys. Check out my blog at healthcareonomics.com. You can check out my YouTube channel as well. I put new videos up there from time to time. And I have written a couple of books. If you're interested, I have some for sale. Thank you very much.
All right, a couple of comments before we go to Q&A. In listening to all this and looking at your slides, and I looked at your book earlier today, I think the biggest problem that we have to contemplate from this is the marketing piece. We've had similar experiences to you. We put $25,000 for a group of 13 docs, well, 15 at the time, ear, nose, and throat of Georgia, located at the time all across Atlanta. And for 25 grand, they produced the largest radio station in town, the biggest talk radio station in the country, produced a radio spot for us. It ran a whole bunch of times. Number of new patient referrals, 0. I had another experience where a news crew came into my operating room because I do vocal cord implants for paralyzed cords. It's a made-for-TV operation. They walk in breathy, they can't speak. You pop an implant in while they're awake, and the voice instantly comes back on the operating table. That particular operation worked out perfectly. You always sweat that when the cameras are in the room. It was so good, they split it into 2 segments. They syndicated it. It went as far away as Vancouver. Number of new patients, 0. So the marketing piece, I think, is the take-home lesson here. Is where and how do you spend your money? And I'm not a big fan of the TV thing or the radio thing based on our prior experience. I do wonder about social media. So if any of you have an experience with marketing, social media or otherwise, if you want to come to the microphone and share your experience and let the rest of us learn, that would be fantastic, because that's a tough nut to crack, and I don't know the solution yet. So we'll go to Q&A, and Dr. Lee is ready to go.
So quick comment on the marketing. We have done everything you could have possibly done over 10 years. We've done print, we've done radio, we've done newspaper advertising. We even had a bus. We actually had a bus wrapped with all of our information, and it drove up and down the main strip all day long. And the funny thing is, the bus actually generated more phone calls than anything, because the bus would run people off the road, and people would call the bus and say, "Your bus just ran me off the road," you know. But it didn't generate any patients. But the social media stuff, I mean, Dr. Crouch and I sit down every Friday morning, except for this morning, we missed it, and we do a 3-minute Facebook Live. And we just sit on our porch and we chat about whatever's on our mind. It costs us nothing. There's no preparation for it whatsoever. And we get anywhere from 1,000 to 5,000 views every single week on this thing. And you know, we don't promote it. We don't pump it up. We don't blast it. But what it does is it allows people to understand our personalities. It gets people to know who we are and how we approach things and how we think about things. And so by the time people actually come into our practices, they already feel like they know us.
Yeah, it's very important. I mean, I would say that getting to know people, you know, part of what people are looking for in a doctor is somebody who will, you know, everybody loves a chatty doctor, believe it. And one of the things that really DPC fills is that ability to sit down with a patient and take your time and get what they need out of them, and they get what they need out of you as well. They don't know going in how that's going to work if you're not somebody who's really warm and capable of carrying on a conversation. So just going and speaking to them, I used to think mistakenly, very mistakenly, that as a physician it would look bad if I marketed my own practice. And boy, I've changed my mind on that. Now I just walk in and I've never met a stranger. I'm like, "Hey, I'm Dr. Kevin Wade Casey. I'm your next doctor. How you doing?" And that worked very well when I did it for the short time that I was able to do it. And so I'd highly recommend you do that as well. You know, it's one of the funny things about what we do as a living is that when it comes down to it, patients have this weird psychology. And that is, if you ask them to pay more than $20 for a copay, they'll look at you like you need to be on medication if they're feeling well. But when they get a sore throat, they will come and they will pay you $10,000 and let you stick a needle in their eyeball if you promise it will fix them. So a lot of this has to do with timing as well and just waiting the patients out. The problem then becomes, do they want to commit to a whole year's worth of service for a sore throat? Well, that's why we need to go to employers. I really, really strongly advocate going to employers, because they're either paying the bills for a lot of this for their people, or they're self-employed and they don't have health insurance. They don't have the traditional coverage like most everybody thinks.
Next.
Okay, so my name is Dr. Lulu, AKA the Momatrician. I have 3 ways that I've done my marketing, and none of them has cost me any money. The most important advertisement you have is your patient.
Right.
So before every patient leaves my office, I make them repeat my mantra. If we please you, tell others.
That's
if
right.
we displease
Good
you,
job.
tell us.
Great.
I know it sounds funny, but each one of them says that. And you know what? I jokingly say, you owe me a 5-star rating, and I get a 5-star rating on Google. You have to control the narrative. But I have to give good medicine also. I'm not going to just bullshit you into a 5-star rating. The point I'm making is, you make eye contact, you spend time with your patients, they get to know you. They will eat out, they eat Nigerian spaghetti and plantains and goat meat. You just have to cook it and serve it to them. So I keep it real, 100%. If we please you, tell others.
Right.
Let me tell you, I don't care what TV station, CNN, Fox News, if I tell my friend, this doctor is good, that's all the doctor needs. my friend is going to go because I told them to go.
Yeah.
They might not even watch CNN or Fox News. The second thing I do is what Dr. Lee Gross said. I do Facebook Lives. I've done them every Sunday for a year, like literally maybe 15 months now. I was at my son's school at Stanford visiting, and I did a Facebook Live. I was at my second son's school at Texas Tech visiting, and I did a Facebook Live. Consistency. And I laugh about it, and I have them tell me, what do you guys want to hear about next week? It's always something to do with teenagers, because I see high-risk teenagers. But my personality comes through, and yes, I get people coming from Florida. I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't see people in Florida. But they have a friend in Texas. They're like, yes, I have a friend in Texas. Boom, I get a patient from Texas. The point I'm making is just say it. You know, my favorite phrase is just do it. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? Nothing, but you might get a patient. And if you're good to them, you might get 2 patients. And the third thing I do is, yes, I do podcasting. My podcast is about suicide, but the point is, because I'm talking about suicide, people want to, what? And then I just kind of, oh, by the way, yeah, I know you don't know this yet, but if your child is ever cutting, you want to call me. And I say it with so much ease and so much confidence. They don't even know when I, like, how much do you charge? Oh, yeah. And that's how you get a patient. Deuces.
Good job.
Beautiful.
Yeah, keep in mind, you have a product in DPC that very, very few people really understand. I have this story, I have to tell this story really quickly. When I first started, I went to a concert, and I was sitting next to this couple, and the woman turned to me and she said, what do you do for a living? And I said, well, I'm a doctor. And she said, oh, what kind of doctor are you? I said, well, I have a general practice, but I don't accept any health insurance. And she just went, whoa, what? That is genius. Wow, you're a genius. And I looked at her cold and I said, I don't consider my business model to be genius. I mean, I provide a service and I charge people for it. It's like every other business in the US. But let me tell you what's genius is the fact that you think I'm a genius. Now that is a genius. It's all about the psychology of it.
Dr. Chad Savage, I actually almost thought about sitting down after you had your part. 100% agree. Many of the things I was going to say is that marketing for a DPC is labor intensive because you are marketing yourself. Don't pay a lot of money to someone else to market you. We are marketing a personal relationship. So start it in the marketing. You got to get out there, talk to people. Right. A couple of quick pointers. Don't assume when you save someone money that they get it. When I first started my practice, we had incredible savings, and I'd come in and we do dispense in our practice, and I'd come in and I'd go, here's your script, it's $2. And I'd be all excited and thinking they were going to recognize, and they'd look at me and, okay, thanks. That's $40 at the pharmacy. Oh, they get excited and happy because you just told them what you, so tell them what you said, what you saved them. The other thing too, kind of building on what you were saying too, is I actually had a placard by my checkout that said, if I can recall correctly, the greatest compliment a doctor can ever receive is when a patient refers a family or friend. And I would have patients who would come in and they would reference the placard and said, hey, I sent somebody to you, and they'd be excited to tell me that they did that. So don't be scared to ask, when your best advertisement will be your existing patients. So, don't be scared to say, hey, if you like your care, send people to me. Just basically 100%, back her up.
This is a real mindset issue. Let me tell you a true story that really did happen in my clinic one time, and I wish I'd been there at the front desk. I would have mouthed this guy. But he came in wanting to be seen for something routine. I don't even know what it was. My clerk at the time said it's going to be $99. She had taken his insurance card. The way we did it was we had the patient come in, and we didn't announce to him right off the bat that we didn't take health insurance. I figured out after about a week that was a no-doer. That was not going to work. So what we did was we'd take their health insurance card and we'd give them the paperwork and say, go have a seat and fill it out. Just like you do at a normal office, right? Now this is back in my urgent care days. And then we would run their insurance card through Availity, through one of these services that was free, and you can check their insurance status and their benefits. And so she had done this for the patient, and she mentioned to him, he said, well, gosh, it's $99 and you don't take health insurance? I'm just going to go to the ER. And she said, but sir, your ER copay right there is $250 versus $99. Let's keep that clear. And you know what he said on his way out? He said, oh yeah? Well, at least they take my health insurance. And I don't know how you beat that mindset. I really don't. Aside from physically, which I'm not about to do, but still, it's like, wow. Yes, sir.
Well, Chad, you're even more right than you realize, because that applies to every doctor on the planet and not just DPC docs.
Yeah.
If you are going to market, whether you're going to do it yourself or you're going to pay someone to do it, they need content, which means they need you, which means they need your time, they need your face, they need your words, they need your message. And it's not something that you're just gonna, cut a check for $11,000 in your case, or 25 in ours, and just expect the waiting room to be full in a week with no time from your own.
And they will promise you it will be full. Oh, your waiting room will be full. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Hal.
Mike, you and I have been doing radio together too long. You just stole a lot of my thunder, what I was just going to say. Because marketing a medical practice, I'm a urologist. I actually manage one of the largest urology practices in the country. And marketing a medical practice doesn't really differ whether or not you're a primary care doctor, you're an otolaryngologist, you're a urologist. Really what you want is for people to see you out there, and there are different platforms now that are available for them to see you, and social media is really important. What I do, and what we do in our practice, we have little cards. We have a Google. Everybody looks at Google now. They want to rate you on Google, and that's really important. And so every satisfied patient will say to them, will you do me a favor? Social media is so important. Will you just go and take this card? Here's the address. Just go to Google today. Do it in the waiting room before you leave. And it's unbelievable how that changes your ratings online. It's really startling. The other thing is, some of the things you could do for marketing don't cost a lot of money, and believe me, we pissed away more money on marketing. We've had billboards in Atlanta on Georgia Urology. Yeah. We have lithotripsy. We have trucks, and they go around with our doctors' faces on it. We've done TV, we've done everything. The two things that I just want to say are, number one, if you can get a logo, and it doesn't even have to be one of these logos you spend a lot of money on. It can be something that, if you've got a creative child in your house, they can come up with it. And make sure that it gets out there as much as possible. But the other thing is that you can go ahead and do low budget marketing by sponsoring a Little League team, or by going out to PTA meetings, or doing things in your communities that would just really generate interest in what you're doing. And that is probably more valuable than spending money on any consultants, PR, marketing people who I agree are parasites.
One of the most frustrating experiences I had during this practice was about 6 months after we opened. I was desperate to get on the news. I wanted some news exposure. And so I offered free flu shots in January of 2014. And it was a hit. It was an unqualified hit. Because on any average day in my urgent care era of my DPC practice, I would see maybe 1 to 2 patients a day. We saw for 5 days straight over almost 150 patients a day getting free flu shots. Now, that's about, I would say roughly about 600-700 patients came through my office that 1 week. How many of them do you think ever came back for any care? 0. So I would not give away your services. And I did free school physicals as well, and we weren't inundated like that, but yeah, it was a problem. We never saw those people back. So I don't think that's a good approach, is giving away your services. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is that physicians are not born marketers. I mean, like I said, I've never taken a business course, and it shows. But I've never taken a marketing course either, but I'm a quick learner, and one of the things I've learned is that you have to get out there. You have to make yourself available to people, and rather than pay somebody else to do it, get out there and pound the beat, as a cop would say, and meet some people locally and make some do some talks, give some presentations, and you'll see it work.
Before we run out in the hour, we've got somebody at the other microphone I want to.
You hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Hi, I'm John Pastori. This is my first time here. I'm not a doctor, but I've worked with doctors for many, many years, and I want to applaud everybody here for changing what should be changed and working for this. And in the field of marketing, what I think that's really important is that you stand out in your community, offer something really special. In your particular case, what I hear is direct patient care. So what better way than to be able to represent a patient when they need you most in an emergency? Now, I know this firsthand because in November of 2017, I was called by my neighbor. I was at a medical convention meeting, and he called me and he said, 911 is trying to get into your home. This was 30 minutes after 911 arrived. That day, my wife passed away.
Sorry.
Now, I can only think that if I had been notified immediately, things might have been different. And that's possible today. And it's actually possible for you to be in that notification. It's something that I've shown people, and I've developed a little something concerning it. But if you have an iPhone or your parent or your patients have an iPhone, they can set up what's called a medical SOS. That means 911 gets notified, and if they do it right, your contacts get notified. What better way for you to market yourself to be a contact that's notified and be there for them when they need you most? In addition to that, with this, and this is not an app, this is in your phone, you have it. But I've talked to over 500 people, I haven't found anybody who has it set up right yet. With it, you can actually help your patient have important medical information that's available right there at the scene. So 911 could have it, and then you could guide them where they should be. So the one part where I do assist is this little decal that goes on the back of the phone, a sticker that sticks up for you when you can't stick up for yourself. Shows a person how to set things up, shows a bystander, if I have a problem, how to operate the phone and alert 911 in my contacts, and it shows 911 how to get my information when they need it so they can change things. That, to me, working through your existing clients and standing out in your community is the way that you can really work to build your practice. So I wanted to mention that. I'm sorry this situation happened. I'd like to make it a better situation for many, and I think you're probably the best deliverers of this information. So I'd be happy to talk to any one of you and show you how this can be done.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thanks so much for sharing your story, and also I know that you're one of my favorite tweeters, Healthcareonomics, love your stuff. I've noticed that one pitfall that physicians sometimes have in DPC, especially for women, is trying to do everything ourselves. And that leads to issues with burnout or feeling like you don't have time for yourself. So one thing that I would advise and that I see as a problem is not bringing in somebody to work with you from day one, which would be an assistant or a front desk person or just somebody that can take that burden away, because you do need to be out in the community marketing yourself, and somebody needs to be at the office answering the phone. So of course that person should also be a great advocate for you and be able to sell your services to potential patients. My assistant is actually from Brazil and speaks Portuguese. So because of her now, I have all these Portuguese speaking patients. So sometimes your assistant can actually bring in more patients into the door.
Well, I raised 5 kids, so I thought that I was a pretty good manager. And what I also, as long as we're being honest, I have to say that I'm a miserable failure at being a manager. I'm not a good manager because I'm more like a big brother to my employees. That's a mistake. You can't do that. You have to be a manager, and if you cannot be the manager, you need to hire somebody who's more managerial. I know we're talking about exponential employment opportunities here, but if you can't manage your own practice effectively, it won't go. Yes?
You had asked about marketing efforts. My Google, when I began to investigate kind of my online presence, it was never important to me. I've been in practice for a few decades, but I'd always use the Yellow Pages, right? And people go, what? Because I don't use the Yellow Pages anymore, but I looked on my Google, I looked up my Google Face page or whatever, and it says, do you own this face page? So I didn't even own my Facebook page or whatever, and somebody said, you don't own your own page, you better go own it. So so that was my journey of online marketing and understanding people don't use Yellow Pages. So you got to own your Facebook page, you have to have your address in, you have to confirm that with the Google people. They then put you on the map. You won't be on the map until you do that. And then you hire a millennial to help you with your Twitter and whatnot, and you begin to send out campaigns. So as you see people and you ask them if they're pleased with their care, and you carefully say, well, you know, my star ratings now are pretty much dominated by people who my biller has talked to. Not very happy. So you want to engage people that are happy with their care, and the rating comes up. And I think, in terms of going out into the community, speaking to the Better Business Bureau people or whatever you might do, you got to get your Google presence out there and get your ratings up. And you have to have somebody in your practice who's attentive to that, and it makes a huge difference.
Absolutely. Having the right people, again, it goes to compartmentalization. Having the right people who know what they're doing is important. One more funny story I think you'll enjoy is I was giving a talk last year at the AAPS convention, and this woman came up to me afterwards, and she was obviously from the Orient. I wasn't for sure exactly where she was. And she said, how do I market myself? I'm in New York City, and I don't know how to market myself. And I said, I'm sorry, but what language do you speak? And she said, Mandarin, which is the most commonly spoken language on the planet, by the way. It's also very commonly spoken in Manhattan. And I said, have you marketed yourself to the Chinese community? She said, no, I only do Medicare. I said, oh my gosh, if I were you, I would be going door to door, speaking with all these Chinese business and these very successful Chinese people who live in Manhattan and who want your service. You literally speak their language. So find your niche and work it if that exists for you too. Yes.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to, my name is Joan Phelps, and I am a healthcare advisor and a medical consultant. So, you know, I help physicians do all kinds of things, and marketing is one of them. And my suggestion, another suggestion for you, is grassroots marketing. And so part of that can be dealing with your chambers of commerce. If you have a decent chamber of commerce in your area, since you're a DPC provider, and so your business is local, you really should be getting as involved as you can in your Chamber of Commerce. They do a lot of things, you know, so you would have a really good exposure in a number of ways that they offer you as services for what you pay. And so if you can't do it because of you're busy, of course, you can send one of your, if you have a manager or you have someone that is working in your office, have them be a representative, or you can hire me. Either way. But I think it's a really good idea to look into your Chamber of Commerce in your area.
Yeah, I talked with a lot of, there were several suburbs around the Colleyville where I set up my shop, and I spoke with probably 6 or 7 different Chamber of Commerces over the course, some of them several times, and gave presentations. But again, it was more of a timing issue. I think nowadays, and let me get back to that really quickly and then we'll wrap up, but timing now is much, much better timing as far as people's reception towards DPC, towards the idea of paying for their health care.
Okay, I think we're out of time. Thanks everyone for being in the world's largest doctor's lounge. We'll see you tomorrow.